Well, hi, it's gonna be depressingly freaky, but let's talk about this. So, let's get this shit going on. Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night if you're about to sleep. Hi, my name is Phil, and welcome to another segment of Freaky Filipino Friday with Phil. Rawr. Where I talk about weird, freaky stories, history, and also culture in the Philippines. Because, we're just weird. Yeah, I guess. Well, thank you guys for voting for this week's topic, which I wasn't ready for it because this topic has a lot of emotional baggage, like heavy. The human zoo in St. Louis, which displayed racism against Filipinos. I'm a bit surprised that not a lot of Filipinos know about this. I can't blame them because this was not taught to us in schools. And I knew this because I came across about an article about human zoos around 7 to 9 years ago, and I was shocked that there were Filipinos in it. And I know some of you Filipinos will come after me. Like, Americans saved us and stuff like that. We learned English through them. Okay, let's be real, y'all. There were a lot of things not mentioned to us, especially the dark side of history. Our history books in schools are not 100% accurate. But I'm happy that there is social media, internet, and Google that people can share untold stories. So before we start, please prepare yourself emotionally, because I will be describing unpleasant things happened to the natives. And believe me, while I was researching this, and it was a bit so as much as possible, I'll try to lighten up the mood because this is kind of a bit depressing. So let's begin. 1859. So Charles Darwin published a book on the origin of species. So the book introduced scientific theory that populations evolve over the course of generations through process of natural selection. And this highlighted the evolution of man, that we come from monkeys, which made everyone obsess about the missing link. So 3 months after the book was published, the crazy stuff started. Yeah. So P.T. Barnum, aka the Greatest Showman, this guy started to showcase a new attraction in New York City. He called it Man Monkey, which according to him that this creature was captured by hunters in Africa, and they promoted this creature was studied thoroughly by scientists, and said that this creature is the connecting link between African blacks to lower creatures like monkeys, like what the F, man? But the truth is that it was just a guy named William Henry Johnson, or known as Zip the Pinhead, who had this rare condition that caused his malformation of his head. So he spent most of his life as a missing link in the circus. But P.T. Barnum wasn't satisfied. He wanted more. He then wrote to different commercial agencies and consulates throughout the world to look for savages for his circus, and he got what he wanted: the Australian Aborigines, and they were classified as lower level humans, and it was a big hit for his circus. The reporters feasted on this story, and the public became fanatic of this deceit. And because of this, the other circuses started to follow this kind of trend: human exploitation. So these huge companies would go all over the world just to find something exotic and relate this to Charles Darwin's evolution of man. They would often choose the ones with disabilities or with rare genetic conditions. Don't get me wrong, I love the movie The Greatest Showman, okay, as a movie, not in real life. I love the songs and also Hugh Jackman, but I have to reflect upon this when I knew the history. So I tried to compose myself, but it's never enough. Never enough. While the circus dealers were doing their shenanigans, something was going on in the Philippines at the same time. In the 1800s, we were still a colony of Spain, a tough era for Filipinos, but in 1898, we were saved by the Americans. Hooray! Actually, we were sold by the Spaniards to the Americans. History lesson 101, Treaty of Paris, where the Americans got their receipts. During 1898, at the peak of the Spanish-American War, a man named Truman Hunt went to the Philippines. Now, Truman Hunt was a medical doctor, but later stayed in the Philippines after the war ended. Then he became a lieutenant governor of Bontoc, where a tribe of Igorots lived. Now, Truman was the bridge of Filipinos to this exploitation. Now, back in America, the obsession of searching for the missing link was still going on. And circuses were pushing hard on this, and the state of Missouri had this crazy idea of making this a huge event that will attract millions of people, the St. Louis World's Fair. Now, this was an international exhibition in Missouri that, consistent with other world fairs of that time, was an entertaining spectacle, as well as a means of promotion of both products and industry. But it wasn't just products alone. That includes human exploitation. The organizers wanted to maintain the fair as a scientific innovation. They didn't want to have the level as the circus. Those were freaks, according to them. Like, ew, we're scientists, we're better in exploitation. So the head of the anthropology department in the fair, William McGee, orchestrated the human zoo in the fair because McGee wanted to showcase a mainstream anthropology around that time, which was displaying the lower stages of human evolution. Now, funded by the US government, organizers searched all over the world for different tribes to be placed in the human zoo, but the US government was eyeing on the Philippines because this was a part of their plan as a scheme that, Philippines is not ready for self-governance for their own country. Now, this news reached to Truman Hunt and took the opportunity because, money. Truman told the Igorots let's go to America, the land of milk and honey, which makes your lives even better. Of course, the Igorots agreed on this. But Truman wasn't contented though. He didn't just want to bring the Igorot tribe alone. He brought numerous tribes from Luzon, and that also includes the Negrito tribe. In 1904, the American government spent $1.5 taking 13,000 Filipinos from a dozen different tribes to St. Louis exposition. What's sad about this was they thought they were going to America to have a better life, but it turned out very grim for them. Now, McGee wanted to dramatize the different stages of human evolution. He categorized the natives according to race, where he considered them lowest to highest in the evolution stage. So, they were put in display by recreating a village for the natives to recreate their habitat. And the villages were enclosed by huge fences like human zoos. It wasn't alone the Filipino tribes. There were different tribes from all around the world. The Inu people from Japan, Patagonians from South America, of course Igorots and Negritos in the Philippines, and the Pygmies from African Congo. The Igorots and Negritos were already at the bottom of the category, but they categorized specifically Negritos and the Pygmies as the missing links. They were labeled as to have almost the same characteristics as apes. Though the natives were the center of attention, they were treated very badly. They were constantly harassed by visitors, made fun. Women would poke their umbrellas to the natives to see how they react. And it was just crazy, they treated them as animals. The natives were forced to perform their ritual on a daily basis for 7 straight months. Now, the Igorots were forced to hunt and eat dogs in front of a huge audience. Now, this scandalized Americans but also captured their imagination. Igorots really do this, but on rare occasion, and this is a sacred ritual, not as a cuisine. And if you're asking where did they get their dogs, well, the New York City Pound sent these dogs to the zoo. So if you think of it, the government was helping the zoo. The Igorots were even forced to marry one another for the purpose to showcase it to the public. And the Igorot village was the most popular attraction that it surpassed the revenue of other exposition combined. Now, Truman Hunt was made manager of the Igorot village. Truman went back to the Philippines and gathered another Igorot group. So he offered $15 a month to each Igorot who volunteered to go to America with him and put on a show of their culture and customs. $15 a month. What can you buy $15? Starbucks? Well, yeah, I guess, but a month? Now, the lives of the natives were not getting better despite it was gaining money and popularity. All of the natives were living in poor conditions. Now, they were pressured to join athletic games that they deemed unfamiliar just to prove that these people were biologically inferior to the whites. Now, imagine you're an Igorot and then trying to play baseball. Come on, what do we do with this? Obviously, they would lose. And aside from that, they also suffered from foreign diseases. It's a new land, new bacteria. Come on. Despite they were surrounded by scientists and doctors, they weren't even aided. But the only time the scientists intervened is only when the natives were subjected for experiments in the anthropology lab. The lab experiments composed of tests to measure the intelligence of natives and physical features. And worst of all, they tried to measure their threshold of pain. Like, what's this? It's almost like a torture chamber for them. And you know what's sickening? Sadly, some of the natives died during this horrible time. Their bodies weren't even buried. No. Instead, they were taken to labs. And you know what's going to happen? Scientists would just cut the bodies open and use it for their studies just to confirm their theories were right all along. And some of these scientists just wanted the brains from the natives to display these to their collection about the human evolution. It's just crazy, man. And it doesn't just end there, guys. No. Some of the natives couldn't take the horrible treatment and the humiliation that they were receiving, and by that, they killed themselves. One of the most infamous tragedy was the death of Otto Benga from Congo. I can't tell you how horrible how he was treated and what he experienced. To make this story short, he was sent back and forth from Africa to America. He apparently believed that he was going to be hired as an elephant caretaker, but he was wrong. So very wrong. He was placed in cage with apes. People laughed at him, threw popcorn, being poked, and he was just in a lot of stress. When he went back to Africa, he felt out of place. He felt that he was an outsider. When he was sent back to the US, he still felt no comfort or whatsoever. He was just so lonely and depressed. So in 1916, he shot himself. Like, yeah, I warn you guys, this is a heavy topic. Composure, okay? Breathe in, breathe out. So let's go back. The coverage of the Igorots was huge, and newspapers fed this topic to the public. It was also controversial. The people just had this attraction to them that they just want to see them live. The attraction was even considered as quote-unquote better than a trip through the Philippine Islands. And the US government was happy about this because they finally achieved their scheme to brainwash everyone that the Philippines cannot self-govern themselves as a nation, even though there was. And Truman was also featured in the newspaper displaying himself as a champion of the Igorots. Ay wow, Papa Joe. Truman quoted in the newspaper saying, quote-unquote, "I was a healer of their bodies, father confessor of all their woes and troubles, and the final arbiter in all disputed questions." And you just place them in the zoo. Side note, my friends, Truman went to the Philippines to care for the cholera patients in Luzon. I think he had good intentions from the beginning, but at the end, he was corrupted by money and fame. Now, the World's Fair was about to end. Greedy little Truman here wanted to continue this exploitation, so he signed up the Igorots to different carnivals and fairs. The Igorots were showcased all throughout America from Coney Island to Seattle. Mind you, while this was going on, there was also a human zoo in Madrid, Spain, showcasing Igorots again. I know you're obsessed with us, but come on, please, don't cage us. According to Madrid No Frills, the exposition of the Philippines was one of the better human zoos at that time. Yeah, treated their humans better, like animals. And then they reported again, quote-unquote, there was relatively low death rate here, with only 4 out of the 43 humans dying as a result of poor conditions in the Retero Park. I mean, if there's 43 dying, that's not a good sign already, okay? Which is still awful. No matter how you turn the news upside down, it was still wrong. I know this is frustrating, guys, but don't worry, it's about to end, okay? The US government's Bureau of Insular Affairs, which was part of the War Department, received a tip that Hunt was not taking adequate care of the Igorots. There were other rumors that he had stolen their wages, and the 2 men in the group had died on the road, and that he had failed to have their bodies buried. Oh. Truman. So the government hired a detective to track Truman down to see if it was really true. Eventually, he was accused of embezzling around 10,000 US dollars in the wages from the Igorots and using physical force to steal hundreds of dollars more than they had earned selling handmade souvenirs. Like, come on, that's their only way to earn money, and he just took it from them. Finally, after a manhunt across the US and Canada, the government arrested him in October 1906. In 1906, the government stepped in and aided Igorots to be sent home to the Philippines. But 5 Igorots remained to be as witnesses against Truman Hunt. Now, this case dragged on for a while, but eventually Truman Hunt was sentenced to 18 months in the workhouse after an incredible trial in Memphis. That word. Forgive me, I'm not an American. March 20, 1970. The remaining 5 went to the Philippines finally. And if you're wondering also what happened in Madrid, the zoo eventually closed and sent the natives back safely to the Philippines. There was nothing much about the lives of the Igorots after what they have experienced. Now, due to World War II, a lot of records went missing or destroyed even, but recent reports have re-emerged that there were Igorots who stayed in America and continued their lineage as Americans. So there was a native named Cabrera Antero and also his wife, who I don't know because it wasn't stated in the research. These two were one of the 1,300 Igorots who came from the Philippines to America, but they stayed and thrived successfully in America and their lineage continued on. Well, that was a hell of a topic, right? I mean, this kind of scientific racism greatly affected the whole world. The scar is still there and it will always be there forever. It's also frustrating that not everyone knows this event in our history. I mean, this is a big deal, like crimes against humanity. It didn't just happen in Madrid and also in US. There were a lot of human zoos going on around the time. Like, we should be aware of this, especially us, the Filipinos. A huge reminder that we were branded as savages, looked down as lesser humans, and exploited heavily, and also dog eater. My god. And that notion has been carried by some Americans till to this day, and it's just crazy. But I'm glad you guys voted for this topic for this week, and I'm happy to share it with you guys. And yeah, this was an emotional topic for me as well. While I was doing the research, like, my heart felt heavy, and seeing the pictures in Google, like, oh no. If you're not ready, don't watch, don't look at it, don't. It really breaks your heart. Yeah, I might be over dramatic, but if you're a Filipino, you would understand this pain, especially Filipinos in America. Bless you guys. Bless you. And you're very strong, okay? And you have to face some of these racism and discrimination from time to time. Stay strong, okay? And that's it. And please do follow my Instagram if you want to know more about myself. But actually, I want you to go there and if you have any suggestions, and sometimes I post there to choose what topic this week, and choose what you want. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video, and please do share it. Share. Stay safe, stay freaky, and goodbye.